Hello everyone. I have sit here for a little bit of time, actually half the morning, thinking if I should turn on the camera and share, and thinking about what to say or what to share, because I really enjoy it, and I enjoy it in the simple fact that it's the freedom to express and freedom to share, the freedom to just be and because I know, for me, like as I start out again, I can say it 100 million times. This is not edited. I have nothing I know nothing first and foremost. I only know that I have an experience and that I'm here and that I'm living my life, how I choose to live my life, finally, without all the conditioning and programming. And if that doesn't resonate with you, that's really good, because that's just where you are. So that's why I say I have nothing to give. I have nothing. I know nothing. I only know from a perspective, and I know that people have inspired me to make different choices, maybe more beneficial choices, not egotistical choices. And yeah, I talk about that, and I want to talk about that because I've just recently, I think a lot of things have come up in my head. I have just received this Walk of Honor, inductee into the Walk of Honor in Florence, Alabama, and I'm on one level of myself, I'm incredibly wowed by that, I guess. And on another side of that, it's like there's a lot that came with this success, and it's kind of, I find it as a strength. I think one thing I can just say as it comes into my mind, maybe perhaps in my mind, the sharing that I have for me it's a sign of strength. But it's like when I realize I have really nothing to say, or I know nothing, which is another thing that is maybe confusing for a lot of people, because reality changes. And I contemplate about sharing. What do I share? I mean, it's only a perspective. But the Walk of Honor, this Walk of Honor and being an inductee in 2018 inductee, which happened this last Friday, have brought up a lot of reflection or hindsight in my journey thus far in my life. And yeah, and it's award, and an award can really inspire. My mom said this, the award could really inspire young people to follow their dreams. But I followed those dreams, and I achieved a lot of things, and I'm here right here in myself, in my life. I don't know how long this talk is going to be, but it's so unedited, and it's just coming out of my head, so I could lose my train of thought. I see a thought just told me to say that, so it could be very, very confusing. So thank you for being patient with me and just sitting here and sharing with me and listening, and maybe something resonates. Okay, I'm back on it. So I received this Walk of Honor, and the woman who nominated me, we were around the age of 10 years old, and we were in school together, and she was bullied. I think she was made fun of, and I stood up to the bulliers, or the ones bullying. And that story really touched me, and I realized that, that I have had to have known something at that time, intuitively, that it wasn't right. So I stood up. Anyway, to make a long story short, she's the one who has inducted me into the Walk of Honor there in Florence, Alabama, my hometown. And I'm incredibly grateful for that story. And I realized that I have this in me, this kind of awareness of the light, of the love, and I think I've always had that. I mean, perhaps I've lost my way in times, and Now I realize that, like everyone else, when I was really young and I started out here, it was all about approval and getting approval from other people and people pleasing and things. This is so subconscious in a young person's mind, and you find something that you're so passionate about that actually just like swoops you up and just takes you. And that was dance for me, and in dance I could just be, and it was so liberating to be behind the sensation of my movement and to be validated for that. And so that was, in a way, it's like, it's validation. There was a validation that I looked for so much, and it was artistic, and it was something I was so foreign about, but immediately I got a lot of attention from my peers and from a lot of people in performing. And so I just it was what I knew. It just was something, it was something that came into my experience, and it never left. And here I am of almost 30 years later, and that passion is still there. But although I think that, this award, what makes this award during I left home when I was 16, so being extremely naive and also running on ego, and only the ones who are really, maybe perhaps at the moment, or who are aware, and there's no right or wrong, but who are aware of the suffering that their ego, they're living from the ego and living from that part of your life, can be very, very very important. It is like, really, there was something, what I could be really, really thankful for is that I had really persevered through the trials and tribulations of my leaving home and feeling naive, and my first love relationship, which was my teacher. But that's a long story. I shared that before. And leaving home and not having that support system around me all the time. And although, I just couldn't wait to leave home because I felt very weird and different. And I realized, oh my God, I think most of us in this population, or most of us in every culture that I've experienced, I've lived in 5 countries, and every place we share that. Like, we all feel weird and different and unique, and that's what we are. We're just different lights of the sun, we're just different rays of the sun, and that's how I like to see it. And it's beautiful, and it's, even if you're not understood, it doesn't have to be understood. I think that a lot of people had really, maybe perhaps what we perceive or what we find acceptable in our society has follow under certain rules, I think, in a way. And so, some people are really cherished, especially if they're good role models, or good this or that, or they're, they follow these kind of unwritten rules, or these rules of, I don't know if I'm making sense, but it doesn't. This is not planned, so I'm just talking off my head. But I'm just feeling like, for me, I had this. I wasn't afraid of change, so I really realized that, and this Walk of Honor award really taught me a lot about that. I have really persevered. I've lived in 5 countries. I wasn't afraid of change, and I think that I've been changing so much in myself because I left home and I had a different perspective and a different way of living, and I realized, that I was formed, like I was formed on how to be and how to behave and what was right and what was wrong, and all these kind of things were given to me, that conditioning, that program that I speak a lot about, because it's very important, I think, for me. What I can share is that I was programmed and conditioned, mostly like everybody. And if you don't realize, maybe perhaps that you are, I can't speak for speak for you, but a lot of people I've come into contact with and books I've read speaks a lot about conditioning and programming. And I realized that my negative voices and the voices that I have in my head are coming from this condition, these conditions because they are inferior thoughts and negative thoughts, and that doesn't necessarily go away. They're much less shallow now. But at the same time, you know, what was most liberating thing for me is to recognize that conditioning and that programming, and to recognize that that I'm none of that. Like, that's a condition. That's just how I respond, and how when I was asleep to that, and I would suffer. You know, like I would suffer. I would achieve. I would suffer. I still again, especially when I started to choreograph or to teach or whatever. You know, I had no experience at all, and I felt again odd and different, and like nobody wanted to play with me. All those kind of things, which are just thoughts or negative thoughts that come and arise, and they're not, you know, they're not true. They're false. And then, you know, your ego also expects for you to achieve specific things. I was a dancer, and I went through really these apparent elite doors. You know, on paper they're like elite, like the National Ballet of Canada, one of the best ballet companies in North America, and then I was dancing with Ballet Frankfurt, and that was a huge change in me, a huge time change, because I don't know, and it was like the most famous dance company on the planet, like one of the top ones, and boy did my ego really like that. And I had been chosen by this choreographer who changed the face of dance, and William Forsythe, and that was really intoxicating. So really intoxicating to my ego, and like, you know, not developing and growing up, and you know, leaving home when I was 16 and trying to develop, you know, these skills. I think it was a blessing. It has been a blessing for me to follow something, or to just follow the wind, basically. I didn't know what I was doing, and I was following the dream, the apparent dream that I wanted to follow. And, you know, I really didn't know anything. I was just showing up, basically, and showing up and feeling like I was achieving, and it felt so good. And I was also approved by many for that. Not always, but predominantly. And I rose. I advanced very quickly. I was professional within almost 3 years, less than 3 years, 2.5 years, in the training as a ballet dancer, which is extremely rare. And so, you know, all of that also brought me some kind of the feeling of accomplishment. But also, when I think about it, like, I just didn't have a pedagogue, and then I would feel, you know, these voices were extreme, like positive, negative. And this is only in hindsight, as I look now. I was not aware of any of that, and that's what I like to share, is because I grew, but a lot of things were, you know, like, I was really, instant gratification was just around it everywhere. So I got it from my looks, I got it from my body. I was a ballet dancer. I got it from the roles I was, the company I was in, the status that I had, the places I was going. I was traveling the world. Yeah, one ego can really be the ego. I'm speaking of the ego. Now, I wouldn't change anything in my journey, so everything is important and everything is a contrast. But I woke up to the fact that I was living on that, and then I injured myself. So I injured myself and I ruptured my Achilles tendon, and that's a whole nother story. And it was one of the biggest things. It was the big, huge catalyst for me to make change, because all of a sudden I wasn't Maurice the dancer anymore. And so I think that was the beginning of really looking at myself. And so it was a godsend. It was one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. And it opened my mind to, like, the possibility that may not even be that dancer again, or may not, which became the reality, because I was not that anymore. And I had to let go of this identity that identified with myself. And I had to do that. And that, for me, when I think about the Walk of Honor, that was a huge part of my discovery. And coming through that was the success, or what I would honor myself with, not what I've done. I'm very proud of the achievements that I've achieved, but they're so shallow in comparison to the development of my humanness, you know, to show me or to teach me that this is in how can you say, that kind of level of success comes and goes, as it showed with my foot. Like all of a sudden my foot, I was injured, and I was not that. So it was like, you know, I came back to dance for a year, and it was extremely humbling, and I would not change it. It was so important because it was so humbling in the right time that I needed to let go of this identity. And I think that I searched for that identity in many other things, and maybe in things that I really love to do. I love to teach ballet. I love to teach, but I do it my way. And then that came a lot of also inhibitions and fear, inferior, you know, because and really I became ballet master, which is on the plaque, you know, a ballet master of these two companies. My ego also too, the plaque and the Walk of Honor in Florence, Alabama is like names. I was ballet master. I served as ballet master with the Netherlands Dance Theatre and the Royal Swedish Ballet. And all of this happened before I got these titles. Now, those titles, if you're in the dance world, those titles or those companies are very well known and famous in the dance world. And I happened to just end up in the right door. Now, I never had the experience of being a ballet master, so when that came around, I really had an identity crisis. Again, this was after the foot, and then the identity crisis of who I was supposed to be. And you know, to never have the experience before, it was very strange for me to witness that I would pretend that I knew what I was doing, and in fact I didn't. So I've been very honest and open about that, and I'm being more and more honest and open about my career, myself behind this career, behind all of those things, and I suffered. But I also had, I mean, you know, it's not about suffering. I have a really good time, but I can say that nothing was really permanent, like for failure or success or failure. So all of it is very important because it's just part of the yin and yang of the life, you know. But it's so horrible for the ego to feel failure. And so as a teacher, as a rehearsal director, ballet master, or a choreographer, or any of these kind of things, as I was putting myself out there without knowing what I was doing, because I really wanted to do these things, because I guess, you know, my ego wanted to be seen and be important, and that I had something to say, and that all this stuff, and that has completely changed. So that is also part of the Walk of Honor, and receiving an award where I've changed so much, and my perception has changed. I've changed, and I think that that's been very disorienting in the last year or 2 years. And I received this honor, which I'm really grateful for all the reasons of the inspiration that I can inspire other people. But here I am, you know, as rehearsal director, and it occurred to me one day that I should be myself. And when that question, I think that started with my foot, also to the question about being myself. And the sound is that cliche as that sounds today. It's like, you know, I've always been curious, obviously. I mean, even from Laura's story that she had told when I was younger, obviously I've been very curious because I've always felt different. But I was always had love in my heart. Love, not romantic love, because I didn't, obviously when I stood up for her, that must have been courage for me to stand up for myself in a way, you know, and that experience. So it's like maybe very, very disorienting for me to feel that I'm not connected with that substantially anymore, that my ego doesn't run the show. And I ask myself why I do what I do and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And you know, as successful as it seems, there's another side of that. And success, it's nothing is final. Like it's impermanent. Things are impermanent, and that made me question a lot of things in my life, and it's still questioning, and I'm still questioning, and I'm just being more curious about like my existence. I don't know why it's here. It is here. I have this. I am here. I'm here with this, and I'm more interested in my own development, and more curious about my existence on this planet Earth. perhaps maybe if I wasn't curious, it wouldn't be I wouldn't be here. But I am curious about what is this, and I question. What makes me, what fulfills me? What fulfills me? None of the external things, materialistic, you know, there's like two worlds. There's the materialistic world that we relate to, like, you know, our toys and our technology and all this stuff. And then there's this, the other reality, which is our thoughts and our thoughts about what we do and about other people and all these kind of things. And I realize that the head is full of negativity and full of thoughts that can lead to emotional hijack and make you feel inferior and all these kind of things. And I think, oh, I've achieved this, and then it goes away, and then no one sees that, and then I want to make sure that everyone knows that I'm important, and all this kind of possibility. I think possibility, it's a potential possibility, and that's what I like to share, is that it happens. And I would imagine that these kind of talks are so rare because when you share yourself, you feel it's not so popular, and that's all good. And that's another question of my sharing, because I don't care if it's popular or not. Like, in that sense, I care about people, and what my sharings are about. Maybe I say something that would inspire, not what I've done. You know, because I think it's really important that the pain and the suffering that I endured, and that still arises, but I don't identify with that. I allow that, but it's just ego, and it's ego because the essence of who we are, or the essence of I've really come to recognize more and more, is that I'm pure love. And there's no other word for it. That's the only way I can describe it. And it's not romantic love, it's love. Love is, let me see, how is it put that I understood? Romantic love is loving the other. And love, personal love, is loving yourself. And that relationship is the most important relation, because the only way I was able to persevere through the struggle, or to show up when I felt really vulnerable and I felt really ugly and nobody wanted to play with me because I was so odd. I wasn't intending to be odd, it just happens. And maybe not. And to some people, I don't know how you label it, because labels are just labels and they're not reality. And this happens in your own mind. But as I persevered and I show up, this is the honor. I think this is the honor, and I can pat myself on the back, is the honor to continue to show up through the pain and the suffering, the irrational suffering of comparison. Because when someone doesn't like something of you, they're entitled to that. And there's no question, And there's no reason to convince. And I think that ego wants to convince, or convince so you can continue to establish yourself in your ego, and to establish yourself and to reaffirm to yourself that you are fantastic and you are fabulous and you are all these things. And those labels that you give yourself is reinstating the ego. And I think this is one of the reasons why I haven't shared, or that I decided not to share. I don't know. I guess I'm kind of making that up as it goes, because I don't know. It's just kind of all I know is what I know. And so I have my ego also. I don't really, it's like you know, it's like, I don't know, like, I don't want to fulfill this ego anymore. Or it happens, things happen, you know, like I can look good and I can have a nice haircut, and, you know, and now I'm working out, my body could be, all of this stuff is so shallow in comparison of the real essence of who you are. So that's what I like to share, and I'm lost for words sometimes, and sometimes I feel like I'm just not so clear, but that's all. I had to turn this on because there's two videos, excuse me, because it's on a time limit, I guess, I don't really know, but it's just, as I said that, so I'm talking about all that stuff, so all of the achievements that I've come, now today I'm like, what is this all about? Like, what is the question of life? What is it all about? It is about the essence or the love that I have for other people, and I'm not ashamed of that, because expressing my love, it felt me very, very vulnerable, because it's like, I don't know, I don't hear, so many people talking about that, and that's probably why it feels so odd but I certainly can find sources, and there's a lot of self-help, there's a lot of information out there, so it's like, I don't know, I think, in general, everyone I'm in Germany right now with the bells. To be here on this planet is a challenge, and it's a challenge because we're bombarded with the false side of our reality, and the materialism, and the earning of love and respect, this kind of these conditions, even with yourself, because if you don't look this way, or you act this way, or you don't behave this way, is the way they want you to do, and all this people pleasing is part of the charade of the ego, and if you don't have the right job, or the right car, or what do you really do, as a dancer, I always said, what do you really do, and my ego can take that, to be defensive about that, and then people just don't understand that art is just also a lifestyle, and it's a very important lifestyle to me. But I'm not here to talk about that so much, but I'm just talking about this walk of honor, and I'm extremely, extremely grateful for the fact, also that my family can enjoy that. But all of this, and my family and my friends and can be appreciated, and I have my name on a plaque, and the ego likes that and everything, although it disagreed with necessarily, I'm an international choreographer, and my ego could want to change what was on that plaque, and I really don't care. I'm really, really grateful for everything. So all of that has transpired up to this point. Why not? Why wouldn't I be? I think it's just the contrast has taught me, and the pain. So what I can share in this walk of honor, what I can share, and I'm not important. No one is important. We're all one thing, you know what I mean? And it just doesn't feel right to identify with that part of me. It is a part, so it's not to be denied. It is there, and it's lovely, and it's part of it. But I know the real deal about what makes someone receive such a thing, because we persevere, and pain, or however you label it, pain or suffering, is part of the honor of getting up every day and showing up. And that's including being also the times when you don't feel like that I have to do this and I have to, because there are so many requirements from our societies, and that we're not supposed to be this or that, and that everything can be a problem, or everything can be a possibility. And so the pain and the suffering that one endures can really, I can very much share that is a huge part of our existence. I can't escape that. And when you try to escape, you're not even knowing what you're doing. You're trying to escape from the reality of that negative part of you. And that negative part of you is a driving force in you, and it's to be celebrated. And it sounds kind of strange, and it is a huge part to motivate you, and to motivate you from waking up. So it's all good. And so now I can, when I'm suffering, I can really get into that. Suffering because my mind wants to come up with some negative thoughts and label and tell you this or that, and that's from the programming, because this moment has never ever happened before. And the brain or the mind, I see it like this. It is not, I don't need the thinking. And that sounds crazy. I can think, I need to brush my teeth. That's also automatic. I can get up. I don't have to think to be loving. I am loving. I am love, that's my motivator during the day, is being able to be positive. And sometimes I'm in a business where opinions are so important, and that it's valuable. And I can share my opinion now only because I know that it's only my opinion, and that I have knowledge. And then you can talk about knowledge and compare. There's no reason to compare anyone's knowledge, because we only gather knowledge from experience, and life is an experience. It's not to be judged or to be, you know, it's right or wrong, you know. There's not a right or wrong, and people aren't, it's because everything teaches you. So it's a beautiful way of existing and to be sharing. So that's what I honor myself for, and remaining that way. And so now it's like I am in a place where I surrender, like I'm surrendering to this moment of the need to have anything my way. And some days it's more difficult than other days, but it's what I am and the way I choose to live my life. So I don't know what will happen now, but all I know is this: I want to share my gifts. I love what I do, and so I used to think that I needed to be a really, really famous choreographer. I'm not a famous choreographer. I'm just known in the dance profession because I've been in it for so long. And I don't know, my mind can say I'm not. Because I didn't achieve to this moment something I thought I needed to achieve, but I don't need to. I've achieved so many things. And all of this right now is all about ego and achieving. It's nice, it's in the feeling of achieving. Achieving is great, and the feeling of I did that, I feel great, but not to reinforce the ego that I'm good or I'm better. The ego is so sly, and so it's just interesting to observe. So the observer is where I am now, and I'm observing myself, and I'm surrendering to every possibility that comes. And I'm just going with the flow and not having to be anywhere than here right now. And yeah, my battery is blinking on my camera, so I'm gonna cut it out because it's a long video. But anyway, I just wanted to let it out and share. And those of you who watch and can resonate, that's great. And if not, and if you got this far, I really appreciate you hearing it. And maybe, I don't know, that's what we can really share. And that's really important for me. And so, well, important. It feels good. It feels good to share my authentic essence, part of myself instead of my ego. And that's what I want to share with everyone out there. So, I don't know. So that's what I'm sharing. I love you. I thank you so much. Laura, if you watch this, thank you for the ceremony, and thank you for the accepting the award on my behalf. And my family and anybody who's watching this, remember that success and failure are impermanent. There's nothing that's permanent. The only thing that is permanent is your awareness of who you are and the awareness of yourself. And that's what's permanent, and that's what you can love and have a relationship with. And you feel joy for no reason. For absolutely no reason. You don't have to rely on anything or any circumstance. That's just where I am and what I want to share. I love you so much, unconditionally, and have a great day. Have a wonderful time. Thank you so much. Bye.